Welcome, star beings, again to FurStrology. Now, today I'm going to complete the 4 sun signs of Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So, but before we start, if you could subscribe, that would be great. And remember, if you want a reading from me, it's actually in that direction, I realized. Go online to rodneylochner.com and book an online reading with me, or book one in Sydney if you happen to be there. I'm attempting to do this outside when it's about to thunderstorm, so we'll try that. So let's start with the sun in Sagittarius. So sun in Sagittarius, Sagittarius is the archer, symbolized by an arrow, also symbolized by the centaur, which is the half person, half horse. And its symbol is an arrow with a little kink down the side and an arrow like that. It's a fire sign, so we're back to another fire sign again. There's 3 of every element, so it's the last fire sign, and it's also mutable. So it's a flexible, communicative fire sign. So Sagittarius are free, they're open, they're spontaneous. They speak only the truth, or they mostly speak only the truth. They're open-minded, they're full of ideas, they're full of adventure, and they're the greatest thing about the Sagittarius is the sense of spontaneity and freedom. Sagittariuses do not like to be pinned down. They want to stay free, footloose, and to be able to run around like crazy horses all over the place. Sagittarius is also a sign that is quite happy to be silly and poke fun at itself. They like to say outrageous things. They like to basically, they're very blunt. They're so direct. They have literally no filter. Sagittarius tend to speak truths that no one else would dare to speak. They don't really believe in not expressing what they're feeling or what they're thinking, and they'll just say it. Sagittarius literally can put their foot in their mouths because they just can't really hide anything. Obviously that's moderated by other planets, but the classic Sagittarius is literally cannot really not speak their mind or the truth. They're adventurous, they're playful, they're also the clown of the zodiac. They tend to like to play games, they like to poke fun at people, and but they're flexible. They've got less ego than the other 2 sun signs in fire, which is Aries and Leo. Both of them can be quite proud, but Sagittarius is quite happy to make a fool of itself because it's a mutable sun sign. So there's one of our qualities again. We've got the 3 qualities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal being sort of basic leadership, fixed are the people who get on and do the work, and mutable are the people who communicate about it. So Sagittarius is very chatty, they're very talkative. It's a little bit like airy fire. They like to talk, they like to chat, they like to poke fun of themselves. They tend to be big talkers. They're very open communicators, and that's where that mutable side comes in. They're literally, because they can poke fun at themselves and they're less proud, that's that sense of they're adaptable, and they're quite happy to see more than one side of the story. Though Sagittarius is also concerned with higher education and the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of reason. Sagittarius can actually often get caught up in their sense of knowledge, and the search for meaning is very important, which is why they range around the world wanting to be free and explore and have adventures, because they're literally looking for meaning. They're looking for the greater truth behind things. Sagittarius can also incline to faith and religious and political dogma. They can be very self-righteous. If there's a difficult side to Sagittarius, apart from their tendency to blurt out everything they're thinking and feeling, and without a filter, they are also inclined to sort of fanaticism and judgment. Sagittarius's pursuit of knowledge, reason, truth, and higher education, higher reason, higher learning is very important to them. it also, Sagittarius energy also symbolizes the desire to wander around the world and explore other places, have adventures, both on the intellectual side, but also the physical side. There is that horsey physical side, sporty side to the Sagittarius. They actually rule the sporting to a certain extent. They're also symbolically the ownership of boys for some reason, or tomboys. And they like to run around and have adventures. So they're very physical. The other side of Sagittarius, of course, is perhaps this tendency not to want to commit because they want to remain free. One of the greatest difficulties what Sagittarius would experience is they don't really want to settle down. They want to remain free. They want to keep their options open and be able to be not pinned down. So they may have commitment issues. This is a classic thing said about Sagittarius. They don't want to commit. It's very hard to pin them down. They will always want to remain free. One more thing about Sagittarius is that that fanaticism I mentioned earlier. They might actually not listen to any other people's point of view, which is a bit of a problem. Or not a problem, but it's a tendency of fire signs. They're very caught up in their own belief system. So Sagittarius will make up truth based on what they want to believe, and if they will create a system for themselves. So they'll look at a knowledge system. They'll adopt a belief system and stick to it, even when the facts don't necessarily support it. So there can be the element of fanaticism and judgmentalism in the Sagittarius. One more thing as well is back to the sporty side. They have to be physical. They have to be free, and that's what they love, and hence they're symbolized by the horse, and which is a symbol of freedom. Now let's move on to the sun in Capricorn. So Capricorn's symbol is this funny little, it's very hard to draw it backwards. It's like a V and it comes up and it twirls around. It's really hard to actually figure out what it's supposed to symbol, what this glyph is supposed to look like. But Capricorn is ruled by the goat, and it's an earth sign. So this is again our last of our earth signs coming around, one of three, and it's cardinal. So it's a leadership position. So it's a leadership position, cardinal position in earth. So Capricorns are concerned with structure. They're ambitious. They're concerned with wisdom and duty and responsibility, fitting into structure. It doesn't necessarily make them conservative. They're just concerned with structure and building and ambition and literally the way things run and the way things work. Capricorn is classically symbolized by the notion of career and job and responsibility and work, economics, government, infrastructure, and basically the way everything ticks together and runs. So Capricorn is very much about structure. Actually, in the body, Sagittarius rules the bones, and there we have the structure of the body. So Capricorns, did I say Sagittarius? I meant Capricorn. Capricorns rule the skeletal structure, and so everything to do with structure is tied in with Capricorn. Now, as an earth sign, again, Capricorn is concerned with the nature of reality and how things are. They very much want to fit into the structure of the world, and they're very good with dealing with the reality principle. So if you remember that, as I said before, government and industry and the economy is all the classic area of Capricorn. So they're very much concerned with building and organizing, structuring, and even if they're not in those particular industries, and they don't have to be, their identity is bound up in the structure of reality and how they fit in it. So they're very industrious, they're very diligent, they're very dutiful. And there's also an element in Capricorn that relates to the idea of old age and wisdom. So if we look at the Sagittarius that went before it and they're concerned with freedom, Capricorn has basically sowed their wild oats, and now they're going to get down to work and work as a part of society. So again, one of the classic things of Capricorn is their work ethic, and basically structuring their lives according to a set of principles, and a set of governing reality principles that they adhere to. Capricorns are often, so they're diligent, they work hard. They often have a plan they're great planners, list makers, so they're not going to spontaneously just go off and half-cocked and do something crazy. They'll think about it, they'll plan it, they'll have a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a life's plan, and they'll try to adhere to that. Capricorn also rules old age, so it's the idea of wisdom. You may remember, some of you will have experienced the Saturn return. So Saturn is the planet that rules Capricorn, the one of the rings, and it literally symbolizes limitations of reality that govern your existence. So Capricorns they really have a reality principle. When Saturn returns to its original position at around the age of 27, 28 or 29, that's when we get the reality principle. That's when we grow up and we decide, oh, I can't just be a young person anymore running around having fun, partying, seeing the world, not really taking on responsibility too seriously. If you haven't already worked it out, by the time Saturn returns, that's when it really hits you, and you've got to grow up and be dutiful and get a plan. And it's the idea of, I'm not really old, I'm not really young anymore, now I have to be mature and responsible. So prior to the 1960s, 70s, people considered themselves old. They were no longer young once they hit 25, 26, 27. In the 60s, they said, never trust anyone over 25. So this was the idea of, once you get to that age, you're no longer young, you're an adult and you're mature. This has shifted. We can stay young until we're 90, 100, whatever. So but that changed. So the nature of Capricorn and Saturn return changed. You don't actually have to be old anymore when you get your Saturn return. You can stay a child, you can stay young, don't have to at least believe in an idea of age. But Capricorn did set that. So it does indicate responsibility and duty and buckling down and getting on with your life. Get a haircut, get a job, get married, have a career, have children, settle down. The whole idea of settling down is I would say a Capricorn idea. Let's settle down. You don't actually have to settle down anymore. So that reality of Saturn has changed to some extent. Saturn also used to be, back in the day, in traditional astrology, a malefic, which meant it was a planet that was a bad influence. We don't really see it anymore. And Saturn sets challenges. As I said in Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn sets us challenges, and things we have to learn, hard lessons that we don't want to face, and Saturn will come along and say, oh, sorry, here's the lesson. It's going to be really tough, but you're going to have to face it because you have to learn this one. And so this is also what Capricorn represents. Capricorns tend to face their challenges squarely because they just think that's just the nature of life. So there's our summary of a Capricorn. Okay, Sun in Aquarius. Sounds like it's going to rain. Can you feel that? I probably should have said that for Pisces. So Sun in Aquarius. Now Aquarius' glyph is a little set of waves like that. 2 waves like that. So it symbolizes the water bearer. But remember, Aquarius is not a water sign, it's an air sign. It's weird that it's called the water bearer, but it's actually an air sign. So it's fixed air. So its glyph is those 2 sets of waves, and there's actually a nice tie in there with computer technology, because Aquarius and its ruling planet Uranus actually rules computing technology. But let's start with the nature of an Aquarius. So Aquarius it's an air sign, and it's fixed. Aquarius is a radical, unusual, eccentric, weird, different, and they march to their own tune. Aquarius is the idea of freedom and ideology, and having a political belief or an ideological belief system. So if you look at Capricorn, it fits in with the structure of society. It follows the rules and obeys, and it lives according to reality. Aquarius wants to reform that. Aquarius is the reformer. Aquarius rules freedom and authenticity and being true to yourself. The classic Aquarian is unusual. Their sun, they're less concerned with ego, and they're more concerned with being true to themselves and being true to other people's freedom and being true to ideas. So Aquarius rules ideas and ideology, belief systems, humanitarian principles, and anything radical and unusual and different. It also rules electricity, it rules electric currents, it rules nuclear power, it rules nuclear explosions, it rules anything to do with lightning, and dynamism, and literally radical, quick, fast, and unusual, random and chaotic events. Chaos and electricity and things that you can't control are also ruled by Aquarius. So it's literally like a monkey wrench that comes in and throws everything out of whack. So the Aquarian is quite happy to be unusual and different and weird and kooky, and literally a maverick rebel. So the classic rebel is classic rebellious energy, mavericks, punks, rock stars, revolutionaries, anyone who's a radical, anyone who basically doesn't agree with society, will be ruled under the banner of Uranus, and Uranus, which is the ruling planet which rules Aquarius. So, you know, your classic rebel like, you know, Jim Morrison or Lenin or Jesus even, or any radical, the suffragettes, anyone who challenged Marx, anyone who challenged any prevailing system, were classically ruled by the Aquarian energy, which is, I'm not going to obey the rules, I'm going to make my own, and I'm going to make a better system, and I'm going to make some sort of ideological system that actually is about reform. So another way of talking about Aquarians is they're interested in reform. They're interested in the ideological reform of the whole society. So they're concerned with the whole of humanity. The idea of humanitarianism is literally Aquarian. Oh, here's that thunder. So I wonder if you can still hear me properly. So think of basically giving the finger. That's in the classic Aquarian notion. I'm a rebel, I'm not going to do what you say, I'm going to do what I feel like doing. So they will not obey the rules, they're rule breakers. So various other groups of society are ruled by Aquarian. So politics is an Aquarian discipline, but it's also Plutonian. But literally anyone who basically wants to change the political system, any radical, LGBTQI plus people are basically, they're concerned with living their authentic self in terms of gender and sexuality. That's also ruled by Aquarius. So the classic Aquarian look too is the sort of the hippie and the punk and the I always forget the name of the people, the hipsters. It's all an Aquarian kind of look. And the classic Aquarians probably started with the revolutionaries. The first true group of Aquarians probably goes back to Romantic poets, which is like Byron and Mary Shelley and all those people. They were the first kind of sort of Aquarian collective. Aquarius rules the collective. It rules collective energy. It rules working together as a unit for the betterment of society according to some sort of ideological system. The classic Aquarius is friendly, distant, and intellectual. They think in abstract terms, and they're more concerned with ideas than they are often with their own egos and selves. So Aquariuses may have a classic bookworm, they're the classic librarian, there's a classic poet that sits in a corner in a cafe and writes for 12 hours. They're unusual, they're not concerned with conforming. They may be friendly to everyone, but they're distant. Because they're in their head, everything is about ideas and abstraction. Aquariuses can be accused of being a bit cool and standoffish, but that's not necessarily true. But they are concerned with ideas and the realm of higher learning and applying that to the greater good of society. Aquarius also rules technological innovation, such as computing, space travel, big screen televisions, phones, social media, streaming. Thence we get the waves. It literally rules networking, because networks join humanity together in a unity, though not necessarily true, because social media actually also sows division. Literally the idea of networking and Wi-Fi, that all came up when actually Neptune was in Aquarius. Neptune actually sets the social trends of an entire era, like a decade or a bit longer than that. So, but computing, social media, all ruled by IT, all ruled by Aquarius. as is any innovation. I might have mentioned also that space travel's got very important because Saturn's in Aquarius. So it's a new technology, and suddenly it's everywhere, and we're going to a period where we're going to have the technological and the economic exploitation of space, which also ties in with Saturn, which is basically making money out of stuff as well, in Aquarius. So there's our summary of Aquarius, and I've just pulled that down a bit, and see, I'm trying to hide where I live. So now we're going to move on to Pisces. It's wonderfully apt that it seems to be about to rain and pour down as I talk about Pisces. So Pisces is the last of the sun signs of the 12. It's the last water sign, and it's the sign of endings. It's right at the end. So it's a water sign, and it's mutable. So it's probably the most loose and flexible and fluid of all the signs. Pisces are sensitive, kind. They tend to be non-judgmental, but that depends on the placement. Super sensitive, super impressionable, and completely taken over by all the energies around them. Because its ruling planet is Neptune, they're literally half not in this realm, they're half in extrasensory realms. They're half in the spiritual world. So Pisces need a lot of time by themselves because they're literally feeling impressions around them all the time. The classic Pisces tends to cry a lot. That's not necessarily true, but some Pisces do, because it's water. So, and they're so sensitive to everything around them, and they feel everything. Now, the sun in Pisces tends to be sensitive about themselves, but the moon in Pisces actually is more sensitive about other people. But whatever you say about Pisces, it's always sensitive, and it's very, very creative because it lives in the spiritual realm, and extrasensory realms. Piscean people get downloads all the time from other dimensions. So their imagination is literally super activated. So they're super imaginative, and they're super creative, and they're super dreamy. They tend to have soft borders. They don't have a very firm border around their ego, so they feel everything that's going on around them. They can be so sensitive that they withdraw because the outside impressions of the world are too much for them. They certainly need a lot of time by themselves. Pisces, ruling planet Neptune, it rules imagination, illumination, and intuition. It rules all the creative arts. So painting, sculpture, drawing, filmmaking, music, and any other creative art you would care to name. It's a planet of inspiration that comes out of nowhere. Pisces often also don't claim credit for their creativity because they know it's coming from somewhere else. I'm getting very cold here. I might have to go inside. So the Pisces can be dissolute. They can lose focus because they're so full of impressions that they can get overwhelmed by what's going on around them. They may actually withdraw into drugs and drink and any other form of dependence because they're literally so sensitive to what's going on around them that it actually starts to basically create difficulties for them in their emotional balance because they're taking in energies all around them. So the classic Pisces has a sort of sweet and ethereal quality, but that can be moderated by other things. So I'm not saying that Pisces are always sweet and dreamy and ethereal, but that is a tendency. The other classic lovely trait of Pisces is they can be non-judgmental. Pisces has been through all the other 11 signs, so they know what everyone else has been through in the zodiac. So once you get to Pisces, you go, oh well, I've been there, done that. So they tend to be understanding and empathetic and non-judgmental of what other people are doing. They find it hard to judge other people, and Pisces will always forgive, and they're almost forgiving to a fault, which often can degrade themselves so that they can actually let people do horrible things to them and let themselves be bullied and get into stuck in abusive relationships because they can't tend to say no, and they're always forgiving everyone. Pisces also rules, so as I said, drugs and alcohol. They can get swept away because they want to numb themselves or they want to escape reality because reality is too hard for them. Because they're in contact with the upper realms, they think everything should be beautiful and sweet and lovely and dreamy and ethereal and beautiful and spiritual, and it's not. The world is a harsh place, so it's sometimes too harsh for Pisces people. So they escape in drugs, or they withdraw into, they seclude themselves, they become introverted, they hide themselves away. One of the advice for Pisces is always give yourself time every day to feel yourself, because if you're a psychic sponge, if you are a psychic sponge, Pisces, you need to get away from other people and feel yourself and know who you are and how you're separate from other people, and remember who you are, and don't just suck in everyone else's energy until you're completely full. Pisces, interestingly, rules the film industry and any time-based arts, so music and film, celluloid, etc. It literally rules the film industry at the moment, with Neptune, which is the ruling planet of Pisces, in its natural sign, and it's going to be there for 15 years. It's been there, already been there for like 8 years or so. That's why we have peak television, because it's the perfect time to make movies or television, because Pisces rules that. So we're literally living in a golden age of television. We even have the lovely word streaming to describe it, which is a very watery kind of oceanic thing. Pisces also rules mermaids and fish, it rules the ocean, and also, interestingly, the oil industry, and so the ocean, health of the oceans is very important at the moment as well. So I'm going to finish there, because I'm actually freezing out here. My next chapter actually will be about the Pisces ruling planet. I'm going to discuss where it is, and that's happening next time. So star beings, lovely to speak to you today. That concludes our section on all the 12 signs. I'm going to talk about how they manifest as a rising and as a moon in a later installment. But don't forget to subscribe. Book a reading with me if you'd like, online or in person. And bye for now, star beings, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.